Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. This is going to be my catch-up review for the Digimon Adventure 2020 reboot, encompassing episodes 8, 9, and 10. I fell a little bit behind because of a bunch of other stuff that I needed to get out on the channel that I had to prioritize, and I kind of fell behind on watching it, but I've caught up. I'm probably going to review it now more sporadically in chunks because I feel like people just aren't watching these videos as much, but I still want to cover it. Not to mention it's kind of hard to fit in with the schedule, but don't worry, I still will be covering it. It'll just be in more chunks, but I might do a one-off episode review every now and then if it's like a really important episode. But this kind of worked out because these 3 episodes kind of formed a little bit of a mini arc, and it starts a new arc as well. So we start off with the Digidestined are at this like fortress, and they need to get through it to get more information, and it's guarded by like Gorillamon and these Tankmon, and they have like some toy security. So they have a hard time getting through it. They get saved by Matt, who we have not seen in a while. I mentioned last time I reviewed this show, I remember mentioning it, that I forgot Matt existed almost because we've been such a slow burn of introducing everyone. But Matt shows up, they all work together, and Matt sort of agrees to be something of a decoy, and he's like, oh, you guys are kind of going to be dead weight, you know, I'm going to distract them myself. But then he's kind of inspired by them. Well, actually, he doesn't want them to distract them. He's trying to go on his own and wants to leave them behind, but they are distracting later with, like, against his wishes, and he's, like, inspired by them, willing to put themselves out there so that they can all accomplish the mission, and it kind of creates this nice team camaraderie moment, and they're able to win the day and get to, like, the information booth, where they got, like, one of those tablets with more information on what they need to be doing, and then it kind of leads into a part 2, where they're all still there, and oh, also, Izzy finally shows up. Like, in the beginning of the first episode, of episode 8, he's still in, like, the Digiquartz thing, and he's, like, giving information on what's happening in the real world, but then he eventually regroups with everyone, and he's finally there, so we have the core 6 all together finally. But anyway, they find the information in the booth, but then Ogremmon's attacking, because Devimon doesn't want him to disappoint him, but Ogremon also wants to sort of defend his honor from his last encounter with Greymon and what happened to his horn. And so he shows up and he's fighting Greymon, but then the fight gets interrupted by MetalGreymon, which is the first ultimate Digimon we've run into that surpasses their current level of Digivolution, and he interrupts the whole thing, and Ogremon ends up getting destroyed fighting him, but before he gets destroyed, he mentions that the way to the Holy Digimon is straightforward, and then so in the next episode, they don't know whether to believe him or not, but Tai believes they should, because he thinks that Ogremon had honor, and they eventually do discover that that is the way through, that he wasn't lying about it being the straight line, but there's like this poison gas stuff or whatever blocking it, so they can't exactly go that way. And they're trying to figure out how to defeat MetalGreymon because he's stronger than anything that they faced before, and Izzy pulls up like his little data file classic, and they do come up with a pretty smart plan, and Tai is like super determined to defeat him even though Greymon has a hard time standing up to him as a champion level, but his determination and courage leads to, you guessed it, Ultimate Digivolution. So we've now entered the ultimate stages. Greymon digivolves to MetalGreymon for the first time. It looks pretty awesome. He defeats it, and then they discover at the end of the episode that there's basically 2 paths they could take with the direction they know they need to go, and they don't know which one's right, so they're splitting up. And this feels pretty classic Digimon Adventure, because that happened a lot in the original series where they would splinter off, especially in the original arc with Devimon and then the Dark Masters one. Pretty much I feel likely because it's such a big cast to sort of give them focus and splinter them off. So it kind of goes along with a lot of the vibes of this show where it's something new, but there's a lot about it that's very much of the spirit of the original series. And just a real quick note before I forget it, for Digivolution sequences, so when Matt reappeared in episode 8, Garurumon does get a full evolution sequence just like Greymon, so it appears at the moment the only ones getting full Digivolution sequences are Agumon and Gabumon, and the others just get the Insta-Transform. And MetalGreymon's was just an Insta-Transform in this episode mostly, but I'm going to imagine later he will probably get a full like production Digivolution sequence, and it seems like next week we're going to be getting Garurumon, and we're going in order now. So I thought these were pretty enjoyable episodes. I've still been continuing to enjoy this series. I think it does a really good job at keeping momentum, of progressing the characters and their relationships together, and the overall narrative. Like, something happens with the narrative every episode. Like, it's kind of, in a lot of ways, superior to the original version in that one. But, you know, even when I went back and watched the original version, I was impressed at how every episode kind of added something to it. I think I'm, like, doubly impressed by both this one and the original adding stuff to it, because we kind of exist in this era where, like, TV executives are like, kids are too dumb, they have to have nothing but filler, they can't handle plot. So I'm, like, always impressed when a kids TV show has plot that's, like, steady. And so I've been really impressed with this. I thought the arc was really good with Matt's intro and sort of getting him on board with the team, getting everyone together. It was cool seeing MetalGreymon. Like I said, one of the best things about this series for me is the animation. It's just so beautiful, and there's so much more dynamic fights, whereas, as I've mentioned numerous times, the fights in the original series a lot of times feel like a turn-based anime, where it's just the same animation. So, and seeing MetalGreymon, I've never been the hugest MetalGreymon fan, but even seeing that one looked really cool in the animation. I guess my only nitpick about this is it just didn't feel as important as in the original series, and I don't want it to be like the original series. I don't want it to line up with it, but I did feel that with the ultimate transformations, with the finding of the crests and the emphasis on their character traits like courage, friendship, love, etc., there was a little bit more emphasis on what set the ultimate level above champion, whereas this just felt like, okay, I'm even more determined now. And it's kind of different because the crest is basically a part of the Digivice and is always there, and that crest symbol lights up even when they became champions. But I kind of wish there was a little more emphasis in making the transformation feel a little more special. But, you know, this is a different continuity. They're going to be doing things differently. We just heard recently that there's going to be like 66 episodes, so I'm going to imagine we might be getting some new transformations. So I guess it's not a huge deal. It's just I was kind of expecting it to be. It's also kind of interesting that this series started up with Omnimon, and I was like, and you know about the Omegas, you know about the Megas, and all this stuff right off the bat, and I thought that we were going to be doing it differently. But it's funny, even though we fast forwarded at the beginning, we're now going in order. And it's also interesting that we're probably going to get at least most of the ultimate stages, or at least a handful of them, before we get to the Holy Digimon with TK and Kari and all that. But I guess that kind of makes sense, since in the original series, Angemon largely fought alongside the Ultimates, and we didn't get Magna Angemon until the end. And then Gatomon is already a champion, and so... But that was kind of weird too, because like in the original series, I think the reason for that was everybody was doing Ultimates, so they needed to have her be a champion already to have her on par with the others. Because it wouldn't make sense to be like, oh, here's the 8th child, I just achieved champion. Like, great, we did that 30 episodes ago. You got anything else? And then, you know, in the story, Gatomon was separated from everybody else for a long time, so... I'll be curious if there's any explanation or joke throwaway line about why she's different than the rest of them. I almost kind of wish they had rearranged Gatomon so she was a rookie in this continuity and gave her like a new champion, and then Ultimate's Angemon, or Angewomon's the champion and a new Ultimate. That could have been kind of cool, but I don't think they're doing that. But anyway, overall, I have enjoyed this series continually. It's been really good, a really good update series in my opinion. But what do you guys think? Are you still enjoying the series and the changes and the similarities? Let me know in the comments as always. Like I said, I will continue covering this series. It might just be a little bit more sporadic. It might be 1 episode here, 2 episodes there. It'll just kind of depend on when I feel it's worth talking about. Like, this was a good arc to talk about, as it was kind of self-contained, and then we're starting a new arc. But anyway, until next time guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. DaweSomeWriter, signing out.